In 2013, a song took over the planet. You couldn't turn on the radio, go to a party, or watch TV without hearing blurred lines. It seemed like Robin Thicke had finally reached the peak of his career after more than 20 years. But what nobody imagined was that this very hit would destroy everything. A multi-million-dollar lawsuit, extremely serious accusations, some of the most embarrassing moments in TV and even internet history, and an album so desperate it became a worldwide joke. In just a few months, Robin went from a global star to one of the biggest public image collapses in music history. And worse, a big part of it was his own fault. And this, guys, is the story of how Blurred Lines not only became one of the biggest hits of the last decade, but also ruined and destroyed Robin Thicke's career. But before I tell this story, hey, action crew in the house, check if you're not subscribed to this channel. My brother, check it out now. Subscribe, leave a like, turn on notifications, follow me on social media. The link to the t-shirt store is here in the description, as well as the products that will show up during the video, whether they're related to Robin Thicke or not. But if you buy, you'll be helping me out with my work here. Anyway, all that stuff. And let's go, man, because before anything else, I need to introduce you to the rather unusual family of Robin Thicke. Well, Robin Allen Thicke was born in Los Angeles on March 10, 1977. So, the guy is 49 years old, and check out his parents. His father is the actor, singer, and talk show host Alan Thicke. Maybe you've never heard that name before, but a song he wrote and sang is super famous here in Brazil because it's the theme song for the series Different Strokes, which is known here in Brazil as Arnold. This song right here, man, check it out, Arnold. And for those who are old school, who grew up in the 1990s like me, he was the scientist in a movie called Adored Android, which I was actually really scared of when I was a kid. For those who watch TV series, he played the father in All in the Family. I don't really remember it, but I know some people watched it. In fact, Robin Thicke himself made several appearances in that series, All in the Family, when he was still a teenager. As for Robin Thicke's mother, Gloria Loring, she became very famous for a song called Friends and Lovers. That track, which today has several versions in different musical styles, reached number 2 on the Hot 100 in 1986. In short, the guy's mother was already a hitmaker. And to top off this star-studded family, Robin Thicke's older brother, Brennan Thicke, is the original voice actor for Dennis the Menace, or Dennis the Little Pepper. I need to get a box of pepper, Mom.
Stop! Oh, no!
No, he was always included in this artistic life and really since he was a kid, but he genuinely liked making music. And actually, when he was still a teenager, he was mentored by Brian McKnight. But Robin's talent was so great that he was able to write songs even as a 15 or 16-year-old teenager. And he even wrote the song Anyway for Brian McKnight himself, which came out in 1995 when he didn't even have a beard yet. So Interscope Records noticed great talent in that young guy and said, "Come here, my boy, come here. Let's sign a little songwriting contract here. And maybe we'll develop you as a singer too." In the process, he started writing songs for big R&B artists who were really successful at that time, like Brandy, for example. He wrote for Christina Aguilera and Pazman. He also composed a song for Michael Jackson, which was supposed to be on his album Invincible. But in the end, Michael ended up dropping the track. Still, just having the credit in your life that you wrote a song for the king of pop, that's no small thing, man. However, the record label liked Robin's material and decided to release an album for him. But this album only came out in 2001. This album was titled A Beautiful World, and on the cover was his then girlfriend, Paula Patton. We'll talk a lot about Paula soon because she's very important in this story. What we need to know is that this album by Robin, who at the time went only by the last name Thicke, was very funny, by the way. It flopped hard, nobody cared about the album. Also at that time he was going for a kind of hip-hop vibe, you know? Yeah, he seemed like one of those alternative guys. Like, a lot of people didn't like it because it didn't seem like he had a developed artistic identity back then in that first work. But that first project was enough to catch the attention of a producer duo who were really popular at that time. And I'm talking about them, Pharrell Williams and Chad Hugo, who made up the Neptunes. At the time, they were starting their label, Star Trek. And I'm sure you already know all about the Neptunes because you watched the video I made dedicated to Pharrell, and actually this one here complements that one. So, if you haven't watched it, when you're done with this one, go check it out. Under Pharrell's label, Robin here is fully involved in R&B. and he doesn't let go of his songwriter side, not at all. In fact, now he starts writing for people who were really hyped at that time. For example, I was shocked to find out that he's the songwriter of the song Can You Handle It from Usher's Confessions.
We gon' set it off, we gon' tear it up.
And actually, the background vocals there are done by Robin and Paula Payton. Wow, that's crazy. But at the same time, both the Neptunes and Robin Peake started working on what would be Robin's second album with a new vibe, a new image, and now with a very well-established artistic identity. However, this album would only come out in 2006 and it would be titled The Evolution of Robin Peake. And here the guy really blew up, especially with the second single from this era, which was the song Lost Without You Can't Help Myself. If you remember, right? Lost Without You Can't Help. This smooth R&B is really nice to listen to. It reached number 14 on the Hot 100 and got a lot of airplay here in Brazil. A whole lot. Because it was the soundtrack for the soap opera Duas Caras, but besides that, man, it played on every TV show, MTV, multi-show, you name it. Even people who weren't into R&B liked this song because it was such a catchy tune. Another thing I wanted to point out here is that during this era, Robin had a really unique style, right? People out there used to call him like blue-eyed soul or blue-eyed R&B or something like that because the guy literally, man, he dressed just like Frank Sinatra, you know? In a suit, all neat and tidy. A lot of people said he was trying to copy Michael Bublé, and well, you guys probably know who Michael Bublé is, right? The guy who's more into jazz, pop, and all that. But I think it was really interesting, really smart of them to create that image for Robin Thicke, the guy in a suit and tie who sings cheeky R&B, but at the same time is pop and also brings some really interesting vocal nuances. And I think it was really smart of them to bring in all these elements combined with a vibe similar to Justin Timberlake, Usher, and Brian McKnight. Man, there are a lot of nuances here. These are things that go through my mind when I'm working on the script for these videos. But to promote the evolution of Robin Thicke, he went on tour with big artists like John Legend, for example, and he also opened for Beyoncé. So between 2007 and 2011, Robin focused on this audience, this R&B niche, and released albums in that style like Sex Therapy from 2009. These albums, like I said, were successful within the niche, but Robin had the complete package to make the jump to mainstream pop for good, combined with the R&B he was already doing. That's when, in March 2013, he released the song Blurred Lines, which completely changed the game for Robin Thicke. This track was a huge hit, produced and sung by Pharrell Williams, who also appears as a feature, as you know, and it also featured the rapper T.I. Blurred Lines reached number 1, the top of the Hot 100, where it stayed for 12 weeks. 12 weeks. That's a lot. Besides being one of the most played songs of 2013 with the highest number of downloads on iTunes, it's also considered today to be one of the biggest, top 10 if I'm not mistaken, of the 2010s decade. Like I said in the introduction, guys, back then it was impossible to turn on the TV, the radio, or anything else and not hear Blurred Lines playing. Especially the music video, right? With those three guys having fun with women and all that. It had a really laid-back vibe, but I'm talking about it from a Brazilian perspective. Because here we barely knew about all the controversy this track was causing outside of Brazil. But let's take it step by step. Because the worst part of this whole controversy was the $1 million lawsuit that simply changed the history of copyright lawsuits in music. Let's go. As soon as Blurred Lines blew up, the family of the legendary Marvin Gaye raised a big red flag. Have you ever listened to the classic song Got to Give It Up by Marvin Gaye from 1977 and put it next to Blurred Lines from 2013? You'll see that the similarity between the two songs is absurd. The rhythm, the way the instruments come in, the party vibe, a lot of things there were really similar, and it was already becoming pretty obvious to the public that Pharrell and Robin Thicke had been inspired by that track to make Blurred Lines. But check out how crazy this story gets. When the rumors started, instead of waiting for a lawsuit or a copyright notice, they themselves went and sued Marvin Gaye's family. They kind of wanted the court to declare that the song wasn't plagiarism, arguing that you can't own a style or a vibe. But the plan backfired and Marvin Gaye's family and estate turned the situation around and sued Pharrell and Robin Thicke back. During the trial, things got tough for Robin, who, trying to defend himself against the plagiarism accusation, made a statement that left everyone shocked. He said that actually he didn't even write the song, he basically put all the responsibility on Pharrell. He admitted that he was so high on meds and alcohol at that time that Pharrell pretty much wrote the entire track by himself, and he just showed up at the studio to sing. He used the excuse of being in a drunken state to justify the plagiarism. But that ended up damaging Robin's image, showing the public that he was kind of out of control. Something that was already blowing up back then but would get worse, and I'll talk about that soon. But in the end, the judge didn't care about the vibe, plagiarism, or partying. He came down hard on Pharrell and Robin Thicke. In 2015, they were ordered to pay more than $7 million, which was later reduced to about $5 million to Marvin Gaye's family. Besides the big payout, Marvin Gaye is now credited as a songwriter on Blurred Lines. If you check on Spotify, you'll see it. It was a lawsuit that made a lot of noise in the music industry, and from then on, anything that seemed to be an inspiration. It was already enough reason for the original authors to be on alert and even claim it could be plagiarism and sometimes even sue certain artists. I think in the past decade we saw a lot of these cases and you probably remember them well, but as I said, right, the money was the least of it. While the lawsuit was ongoing, the lyrics of this song and Robin Thicke's personal life were about to implode in a way that no lawyer could fix. Now we're reaching the most complex part of the Blurred Lines issue, as the lyrics themselves were seen as, well, you'll see soon. To give some context here for the Brazilian audience, for the people who speak Portuguese, and also for the folks from Africa who watch our videos a lot. So, Blurred Lines, this title translated into Portuguese, is something like fuzzy lines, which in many people's minds can lead to countless interpretations. But for English speakers, they wanted to know directly from the authors what lines these were. For many critics and women's rights advocacy groups, the lyrics suggested that the line between no and yes in sex was confusing. The chorus repeating, "I know you want it," which means I know you want it, was the spark that started all this controversy. Some accusations began to arise that this song glorified rape culture, saying that the man knows what the woman wants even if the woman says no. And also, even if she says it, or if she's not a good girl, right, a good girl, which is repeated incessantly in this song. Things got so bad that more than 20 student associations in the United Kingdom banned the song from being played at parties and university events. Robin even tried to defend himself by saying that the song was about female empowerment and that he would never have that kind of thinking because he was a married family man. But as you can imagine, a lot of people didn't buy that idea. And if the lyrics were already problematic, the music video just added fuel to the fire. There were two versions of the Blurred Lines music video, a censored version and an unrated, uncensored one. And in it, the models Emily Ratajkowski, Jess Mbang, and Ella Evans appeared only in nude-colored underwear, while Robin, Pharrell, and T.I. were fully dressed in suits, surrounding and flirting with the models. And a lot of people criticized the objectification of women in that video, saying that the men were always in control of the situation while the women were just objects. Then Robin and the people who defended the video kept saying even more controversial things. They said the song was about a playful situation and also about some male desires. But if people were already looking at Robin Thicke with suspicion because of all the controversy the track was causing, the 2013 VMA came along to make things even worse. He went on stage wearing a striped suit that a lot of people nicknamed Beetlejuice from that movie Beetlejuice and performed Blurred Lines with Miley Cyrus. And here's a bit of context for the time. For those who don't remember, at that time, Miley Cyrus was in her bangers era. I think that was the name of the album, and she was reinventing her image from the girl from Hannah Montana to a slightly more independent girl, an artist who could sing about more adult things, and that was already causing a lot of controversy. Then, teaming up with Robin Thicke singing Blurred Lines, things got really ugly. And what was supposed to be a pop culture milestone turned into one of the most bizarre moments in American television. For those who didn't watch it, it was Miley dancing and twerking in front of Robin using a giant foam finger. The scene became an instant meme, it was slammed by a lot of people, and the most curious thing is that Paula Patton, Robin's wife, was in the audience watching everything, and a lot of people knew she was there. If I recall, sometimes the scene would cut to her face or something similar so people knew she was there. And a lot of people criticized it on the internet, saying it was disrespectful of Robin towards his wife. Even if it was an artistic performance, art, music, and all that, people thought it was a bit messed up and felt really sorry for Paula. From that point on, Robin Thicke was no longer the classy singer, he was the guy in the striped suit, involved in one of the most chaotic performances at the VMA. A detail that almost went unnoticed here, sometimes Robin was asked what the inspiration was, for the Blurred Lines music video, and he would say it was Paula Patton herself, but I think he forgot to tell Paula about that. So here's a quick context about Robin Thicke's relationship with Paula Patton. They, as I said, had been dating since they were teenagers, and they got married in 2005, so they had been together for many years, and many people even considered them a fairy tale couple, right? But you know how it is, right? Every fairy tale has an ending, and it's not always a happy one. That's because the success of the Blurred Lines era brought out a not so great side of Robin Thicke, which he himself talked about later, right? It was his ego that started to inflate because of the huge success, the great artist that people discovered he was, and with that came lots of shows, tours, trips, and the cheating. And that's not even mentioning the substance abuse. Anyway, in 2014, Paula got tired of all that and asked Robin for a divorce. After 21 years together, 9 years of marriage, and a child, and this is where Robin makes the decision that many consider the most questionable of his career, which was, instead of laying low and keeping to himself until things got better, the man decided to release a public apology for everyone to see, like, Paula, forgive me, and it came in the form of an album, and that was the album Paula. The album was recorded and written in less than a month. The cover was a photo of him with a sad look, and the songs were desperate pleas for Paula to come back. Robin even performed songs from Paula live at some highly televised award shows. He cried, he even, acted dramatic, really performing the songs, but the audience wasn't buying that story, man. As a result, the album was a commercial failure. In some countries like Australia, for example, he sold only 158 copies in the first week. In the UK, a very important market, only 500 copies in other words. No one wanted to buy that public drama, and a lot of people were saying that Robin Thicke was just reaping what he had sown. But to understand how Robin Thicke went from being a respected artist to a walking meme, we also needed to talk about what was happening behind the scenes. Robin himself later admitted that during the whole year of 2013, which was the peak of Blurred Lines, he didn't do a single interview sober, and like I said, he doesn't even remember who wrote the song. When he recorded the album Paula, he was going through a rough patch, meaning his mind wasn't in a good place for him to write an album. That's why the work sounds disconnected, sounds strange, and sounds kind of ambiguous and confusing to a lot of people. For many people, he wasn't thinking like a career strategist. He was acting like a guy who was addicted to a lot of things and trying to hold on to the last bit of sanity he had left while the whole world was pointing fingers at him. And then, after the album Paula, Robin Thicke realized that the only thing he had to do was really step out of the spotlight, clean himself up, change a lot of things in his mind, and only then think about coming back. So the guy went through rehab, focused on his mental health, and also on being a present father. The big turning point in Robin's public image only came in 2019 when he was hired as one of the original judges on The Masked Singer in the United States. There, the audience saw Robin Thicke completely differently. A polite guy, someone who didn't show an inflated ego, didn't show arrogance. He was clean, respecting other people's work. He was a very different man and, most importantly, far from any controversy. This more family-oriented and professional attitude helped clean up the image he had been building over those years as a bad boy, tough guy, arrogant, I'm better than everyone and no one else matters. And it's worth pointing out that, as you probably know, he's no longer a music superstar, but today he's a respected name on American TV. But while Robin moved on, the song Blurred Lines left scars on other people involved in that track. And Pharrell Williams, the mastermind behind this track, made a pretty strong statement in 2019. He said that at the time he felt ashamed of some of his old songs, including Blurred Lines. He admitted that he didn't realize how the lyrics of this song affected women, and in one of those statements he said, and I quote, "Damn it, I realized that we live in a chauvinistic culture and I didn't know that some of my tracks contributed to that," and he pretty much abandoned Blurred Lines from his spiritual repertoire, if we can put it that way. But what about Emily Ratajkowski? Remember the model who was in the music video? What she said about the chaos behind behind the scenes of that video was much more serious. The model revealed in her 2021 book, My Body, that she felt like a rented mannequin. And she kind of confirmed Robin Thicke's behavior on set, saying it was humiliating and invasive. She said the music video's fun atmosphere masked a very unpleasant environment. Today, in 2026, we look back and realize that Blurred Lines wasn't just a song that, in the wrong ways, became successful, if I can put it that way, but it also left a legacy in the industry. The first of these is that the issue of plagiarism has now caused panic throughout the music industry after that intense lawsuit from Marvin Gaye's family. Today, any song that sounds like another song or that was inspired by another song out there, already feels like it needs a credit. People are already like, look, this was my reference, this is my groove credited. People are already giving credit even before the song is released. And I think the other thing was also the Robin Thicke effect, that I think before you even think about releasing anything, you have to do it sober, and you also have to, respect other people, But talking about the artist, in 2026, he is still a judge. He does his R&B shows for a loyal audience and lives a much more private life with his new family. He is the living example that you can survive being completely cancelled, but the consequences can echo for the rest of your life, and maybe you'll never be as big as you used to be. But in the end, the story of Blurred Lines is a warning to every artist. Massive success can be your biggest trap. Robin Thicke tried to walk a blurred line between the classic and the offensive, between success and arrogance, and ended up falling on the wrong side of history. Did he destroy his career? On the superstar level, I believe he did, but on the personal level, I don't think so. I think it might have even saved his life, and maybe from a 2026 perspective, that could have been the only possible happy ending for Robin Thicke. But this here is just the opinion of the father, and look, this video was based on a lot of research, a lot of data, because I've spent months working on this script about Blurred Lines to bring it to you, and I want to know what you think, guys. Hey, leave all your comments down below, and anyway, we're in this together. Big hug to Gerson Saldana. See you in our next video, and thanks